From TMP to TTNG, for sure the cure and those tired meme jeans. Helican Sella and the promise ring. Sunny day, real estate and rights this spring. Prince Twinkle Daddies help keep the dream alive. I constantly thank God for Algernon and Remo Christie Front Drive. Mineral, snowing, high tide hotelier and more. Rio Limo only consists of the DC emotive hardcore. But you gotta admit, Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. You gotta admit that Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. Have you heard the tired and disavowed lonely word? Have you heard the disavowed and lonely word? Have you heard the lonely disavowed word? Have you heard the tired and lonely disavowed word?
We live our lives uncensored.
And that's where we're coming in with episode 30 of the E Word, happening live. Ellie, I feel like it's been a while. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. Just a hot minute. I'm not sure why. Did we just like need a break? Were we just like we need to chill for a second?
I don't know. I think we recorded like 2.5 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, but we also recorded like real close together.
What's poppin'?
So I lost my job. The reason that I lost my job is very, very stupid. I was told that our store was closing in like 2 days, which already is like bullshit because how on earth is that enough notice to like get a new job? And then I made a joke about stealing from the store since I knew ahead of time it was going to close. Obviously sarcastic, and some fucking class traitor coworker snitches on me, so I got fired. And then a week later, I got a new job at a vegan smoothie place. So that is where I work now.
Cool.
Making pretty similar pay. And then I got fucking sick, which is why I sound like shit. So my life's a real roller coaster right now, pal. How are you?
I'm okay. I feel like the past 2 weeks have been fucking just put my head down and trudge through it all. And I guess the only thing I have to show for is a mouthful of canker sores. So I'm just gonna be mumbling more than usual.
It's ailment season on the pod this week. Yeah, it's not the worst gig yet. We'll see how it goes. I did also like almost stab myself again while cutting a watermelon.
Don't give Ellie knives.
I just can't be trusted. I can't be trusted with any tools, Blade. Really.
So this is the 2011. So this is the rest of 2011 episode. We did this for 2010, where we talked about all the other records that were on that ballot and what the fuck was going on for emo in 2010. And this is the same thing for 2011. The winner of this year was Algernon Cadwaller's Parrot Flies album, and we did that episode with Tank. That was very popular and very fulfilling. So we're not going to be talking about that one as much, but maybe in context of the whole year. But do you want to talk about anything else before we get into 2011 though?
Our Twitter's been very quiet. Neither of us have really made a tweet in a minute. It's okay.
The poll for 2012 was huge. It was like the biggest one yet. So one will be out. I don't even know when. But we are making contact with that band, however. But yeah. So with 2011, I say we start here with where were you in 2011, and what were you listening to?
All right. So this would be like the end of my freshman year and the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. which means that I was like pretty. That was probably like the peak of my involvement in like the Vegas like hardcore scene. I mean, I was listening to obviously emo and pop punk as well because that was kind of just considered part of the thing. But I was very, very entrenched in, going to Yaya's Tacos and like the Womb Room and stuff like that. It was a pretty cool time for me. I felt very in the know, which I don't feel that way anymore. I will never be as hip as I was when I was 15 years old.
So you were very involved locally, like specifically in hardcore. I guess there wasn't much for emo, I'm assuming.
I guess there are a couple bands that came more like later, like Characters, who were trying to do like more twinkly stuff, and Alaska too. But they were also less like straight up Vegas and more like Henderson, which is like a different city within a city. I don't know. It got too complicated for me at some point.
Yeah. For 2011, I was still in college. I think this was my junior year, or no, this would have been half sophomore, half junior year. Last time we were talking about this, I was just talking about how I was involved in college radio, but this was more relevant to mention that I was in college radio at this point because I was getting a lot of these records that were on the ballot as they were coming in.
Right.
I mean, we'll get to this eventually, but like No Sleep was sending their stuff to college radio like very heavily, and stuff like that. And I was actually working, like one of the radio promoters was one of the guys in By Surprise, so he
so
he was talking to me about, oh yeah, my band's on Top Shelf and shit like that.
That's really fucking cool. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I got something to embarrass you with when we get to the By Surprise record too.
All right. Perfect. Can't fucking wait.
And Big Kids. I got a twofer. Just shaming you.
Shaming me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, do we have any parting thoughts for Parrot Flies?
I do think that this album was monumental, like even at the time. Like I would see a lot of people making jokes on like in various forums that were like, what are all the emo kids gonna listen to after they get bored with Parrot Flies? There's nothing else. Like you can't go further. It was just the end all be all. Like it was the most like quintessential, definitive, perennial album in that scene at that time.
Yeah.
And everyone knew it.
Did what we talk about with Tank or what Tank shared change anything for how you listen to it?
It made me pay a lot more attention to the drums,
which are just completely fine.
The drums are great.
Yeah.
Tank is like absurdly hard on himself. I got a buddy who started off as a drummer, and he was like, Tank's a really fucking good drummer, and it makes me sad. Like, it made me sad to hear him talk shit about himself on the pod.
Some discussion to get us into 2011. I put some observations here on this doc, and my observation was this was really the year that No Sleep Records became No Sleep Records.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you could probably argue that for 2010 or maybe 2012, but I mean, this was the year that like we got big records from like a big spread of bands, like Into It Over It put Proper out on it, a lot of Spute put
Wildlife.
Yeah, but like is Wildlife maybe sold more than From the Bottom? I don't know.
I think Wildlife is going to go down as an underappreciated classic. We're going to get to that later, but I think it actually did not do as well. Like its legacy grew, and I think by the time that Rooms of the House came out, it had outperformed Somewhere at the Bottom. Based on the strength of like, I think Wildlife has a lot of like cult, like sleeper hits on it. Yeah. So people were really picking up on that, but
yeah,
I think at the time, Somewhere at the Bottom was like much more commercially successful.
Yeah, but still, like people were like really hardcore waiting for Wildlife to come out. So I think like
oh yeah,
they might have been like the biggest that they have I don't know, but yeah, either way, huge record. There's a couple of ones that were on the list that came out on No Sleep. We got The Upsides.
Yeah.
Just gigantic.
I mean, yeah, The Upsides was huge. That was 2010.
Oh, wait, what did the one you just put out in 2011?
Suburbia, I've given you all, and that
okay,
came out on.
Yeah.
That came out on Hopeless.
Oh, did it? Well, either way, this is like all happening on No Sleep.
Yeah, either way, I think The Upsides was just a huge fucking record for No Sleep.
Yeah.
I think that was like their smash hit, and it was definitely like the moment where people took the Wonder Years seriously.
Yeah.
Like it was very surprising.
And just like in general, No Sleep was just signing bands a lot. And
yeah, you know who else was starting to like gain the same type of reputation as No Sleep at this time was Run for Cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And another observation was like Twinkle was a DIY and underground thing, while like the post-hardcore sound was not commercial, but like a commodity. Like
yeah, absolutely.
They were really being pushed. And the big examples would be like Touche, Parting Seas, Title Fight, Shed, which isn't post-hardcore, but it's
well, I mean,
hardcore pop punk,
yeah,
whatever we want to call it.
Basement, Sea Haven, yeah, those were all like getting transit. It was all getting like a huge push from the bigger labels at that time, and I think that's interesting because quote unquote post-hardcore at that time was really just a melange of emo and hardcore and pop punk, right? Like just bands like variously leaning into one or the other, and I think all of these bands were coming from the exact same place as like the DIY Twinkle stuff, but they weren't afraid to not be DIY, and they weren't like afraid to try and like make careers out of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the twinkly stuff was music made by and for people who truly could not give a shit because they felt like they were playing an obsolete dead genre already.
Yeah.
Like even
Defeater.
Algernon, who were, yeah. Oh yeah, I got Defeater in my list of stuff to cover. I got a whole bunch of albums. Just you wait. This was like a huge year for me. Like so much nostalgia.
Yeah.
Looking back on Love Records.
I was taking in a lot of records at this point in my life. Like I was listening to all this shit as it came out, actually, which was pretty exciting. Except for one that we can start with, I was not aware of until like probably like an embarrassingly like long time after, would be the runner-up in this whole poll, which would be William Bonney, Good Vibes.
I don't think I knew of it like as it came out, but maybe by like 2012 or very early 2013 I was aware of it.
No. I was way after, maybe 2017.
So how do you feel about it then?
I love it. It's I mean, we've talked about this record quite a bit in like the last couple of months, I feel like, but like this album.
Yeah, but I got a new take. Okay. But I want you to go first.
It's super accessible. Twinkle scrams. I mean, wait. Oh, okay. I remember when I was listening to William Bonney at like my peak William Bonney listening, I was like, right. Ellie, what does like the screamo, like what does Scram Cave think of William Bonney? Like, do they just brush it under the rug as like a Twinkle Scrams thing?
They hate it and they make fun of it, for sure. I mean, there are people who like still think of it as like a guilty pleasure or like an entry point. I don't think of it like that, but I also don't quite even think of it as Twinkle Scrams. I used to, but my recent revisiting of it has kind of changed my perspective a little bit, because I decided that with the remaster, it kind of just sounds exactly like 2011 era Touche Amore.
I was just about to like say I want to put a pin in this and ask like, what do people think of Touche and Scram Cave?
Well, Touche are actually pretty universally beloved. I mean, there's always a bunch of people who like give them flack for you know, like the same type of people who shit on Turnstile just because they're like a big hardcore band. But I do remember back on Cross My Heart with a Knife, Touche got so much shit. All the wave bands did. All the like La Dispute and Touche and Defeater, all of them, they got shit for like commodifying scrams or being like fake real screamo. You know, there was even like a weird like shit screamo kids say video on YouTube that had like 300 views. Me being like 12 of them, and like one of them was just someone going like "fuck Touche Amore."
Okay.
So that was the vibe like back in like 2012. I mean, no, like obviously like those screamo kids were a small minority because Touche like blew the fuck up with Parting the Sea. Anyway, on to William Bonney.
So staying with William Bonney, this got 18% of the votes. Algernon really smoked this competition with 30%, which was no surprise.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to do a deep dive on William Bonney because like this album was recorded horribly and it's perfect and I love it that way. But do you think this album like aged well?
To me, it has aged very well. I mean, it does feel like a throwback, but I think at the time that I first listened to it, it did kind of sound more visceral, and now it sounds a lot like I would imagine a band doing this vibe would sound. But I think that's kind of like the Seinfeld is unfunny effect, you know, where it was like so influential that the original now seems like dated in comparison.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I think that might be my favorite vocal performance Jack's ever done.
Yeah, I like it more than Merchant
The drums
Ships,
still sound fake.
Yeah, I can't unhear that. But yeah, I mean, like, there's something like extremely accessible about this album that like it's.
Yeah, there's a reason they're like Fisher Price, my first screamo band.
Yeah, and that's definitely a punchline now, but it's also just like if I want to like sing along to screamo, there's like 3 albums you can do that with, and one of them is William Bonney's Good Vibes.
What are the other two?
I don't know, maybe Touche.
I don't know how much I would classify Touche as screamo. They got the influence.
Yeah, I guess that was just because we were just talking about them. I don't
Yeah.
know, fucking
That's City of Caterpillar for me.
City Caterpillar, maybe. I mean, Old Pride, Pianos.
Yeah. Oh, we got a Pianos album on here too.
We do.
I think they're best.
Do you have anything else for Good Vibes, William Bonney?
If you think that you're too cool for this record, go back and give it an honest listen. The OG version, not the remaster.
Yeah. By no means is this like a hard record. Like, it's not a tough record. It's super sappy.
It's super sappy, but honestly, like the programmed drums kind of sometimes give it like a little bit of like hardcore like skank beat kind of flair. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's an interesting mix of stuff on this record, and I think that history has been kind to it, and the ripoffs don't make the original less good, which is rare.
Sure. Next up we got Title Fight with Shed. This got 11% of the votes. I'm categorizing like 6 of these as like the big ones on the ballot because the ones that we'll get to in the other section, which we probably don't have much to talk about, really didn't gain any momentum at all on this poll. But Title Fight, Shed, I was surprised that it didn't get more or like would rival Algernon at all because it's Title Fight. Do you think that's because it's Shed?
That would make me really sad if it's because it's like specifically Shed.
Sure.
This is the album that if Algernon didn't win, I would have been okay with winning.
Okay. Do you think there's a lot to dive into with Shed?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, this album's just super ridiculously important to me.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of arguments to be made about what the best Title Fight song is, but they are all incorrect unless the best title fight song is 27, because that's the best thing that this band has ever done. I think that the lyrics on this album they're not like poetic or deep and metaphorical or anything like that, but they're just searing and direct, and they have that grab you by the heart and won't let go kind of quality to them. I think Jamie and Ned's voices are perfectly contrasting. I think the songwriting is perfect in every way imaginable. Like, the songs all kind of flow together in a pretty miraculous rhythm. Most of the time it makes sense for each song to come right after the next. Like, it all kind of like flows, especially Your Screen Door into 27. I think one of the things about this album that does not get brought up enough is Walt Schreifel's production.
Walter produced this and did a guest vocal thing too.
Yeah. And he did a fucking fantastic job. Like, this record sounds dry, but also crisp and warm. It sounds like it's really just in your head, you know, when you listen to it. It's not too sparse and it's not too overwhelming. It's just a straight shot right into your face. I don't know. I just remember being so impressed with this album when it came out, and it's never lost any of its luster for me.
Yeah, I've always thought that this album was like a total move because this was their first.
It's their LP. Yeah,
it's their first LP technically, but like people really the last thing you forget. What, like, that's just like everything that they did previously put into one thing, right?
Not absolutely everything, but the best of their early material, kind of all collected onto one.
Okay. But yeah, this doesn't really sound exactly like that, because that stuff was like very pop punky, and I always thought that they were just like a pop punk band just with energy that no one else was playing with. And then Shed comes out and it's like so specific.
So the thing about The Last Thing You Forget is the songs are kind of in backwards chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff at the end of the album is a lot more pop punky, but I think Symmetry and Introvert specifically are very, very similar to the sound that you get on Shed. And that was like the EP they did pretty much right before they started writing Shed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the progression does make sense. I don't think it was like a huge jump in style, and no one else I knew really thought it was the huge jump in style at the time. The thing that was like the move was the fact that they were like shooting music videos. Like, the video for 27 is like big.
Mm-hmm. And Side One Dummy put this out, and Walter Schreifel. And then, so I mean, that's all huge budget shit for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, they formed in fucking like 2003, so you know, took long enough.
Yeah.
But I guess after 8 years, it kind of turns your band into like a really finely honed machine.
Yeah. So I guess maybe something that we need to revisit is, which we talked about on episode 1, is Title Fight's emo.
Yeah. Last Thing You Forget and Shed are pretty much undeniably emo core. Floral Green is kind of like an edge case, and then Hyperview is like dream pop. Like, I think they incorporated the shoegaze influences better than most other bands.
Would you think it's fair to say like Floral Green is just like the best case version of something like what's that band, Daylight?
Yeah,
is doing.
Yeah, it's that
like a reverb shit.
Yeah, songs like Numb But I Still Feel It and Head in the Ceiling Fan are totally what like Daylight and Citizen and even Balance and Composure ended up going for.
Yeah.
As time went on, because the Balance album that we're going to talk about here is much less that and much more like an updated version of like Seven Mary 3.
I don't know what that is.
If that makes sense.
I don't know what that is.
Like Silverchair or Candlebox.
Yeah.
You know? Okay.
Yeah.
Stone Temple Pilots. It's DIY punk rock Stone Temple Pilots is what that Balance record sounds like.
Yeah. But we'll get there because we didn't get many votes. Next one on here is
Yeah.
Touche Amore, Parting the Seas Between Brightness and Me. Probably my favorite album besides Algernon on this list. This album was that entire summer for me.
This is the other one besides Shed that I would have been okay with.
Yeah.
With doing the deep dive.
I remember I would drive to see my college girlfriend like 3 hours away from where I was living and just like listen to this album on repeat. They had that one song about driving all the time. I used to think that was fun to listen to while driving. In the middle of the night. But yeah, this album was huge and it was landing everywhere. Like kids that didn't have anything to do with like heavy music found out about this album. I don't know how. But like I feel like this was landing
AV
on like
Club reviewed
Pitchfork. Yeah, this was landing everywhere.
So I've seen Touche many, many, many times. Tilda is the only song that I crowd surf to ever.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
This album is another big deal to me. It was kind of like a bonding moment between me and my friend Spencer because this was the album that he described as like his Catcher in the Rye of hardcore. You know, like it just like very much meant everything to him. So seeing Touche together was a cool little tradition for us. But there's just so many great moments on this record. I feel like a problem endemic with this style of melodic hardcore is that every song begins to sound the same. But this record does not have that issue. Broadly, Touche doesn't have that issue because each song has very specific identity and very memorable moments scattered all throughout it. Like, how can, like, the beginning of Pathfinder is so fucking iconic. Condolences is, like,
Method Act.
I defy you to name another band in this style who could pull off a song like Condolences.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy is a real fucking talented lyricist. And it helps that the music doesn't ever... They're not trying to go balls out and experiment. They're just going for the fucking jugular with the type of music they're playing. It's a blend of screamo and melodic hardcore and pretty much all the Bay Area stuff that was also happening at the time, like Dangers, and
yeah,
I can hear a little bit of that in their sound, especially in like the pre-Parting the Sea stuff.
I think this album, compared to what followed this with Stage 4 and what was the other album called?
Survive By. I actually think Survive By might be their best record,
Yeah,
but I know I'm in the minority.
But that album and Stage 4 both made me miss the speed of old Touche because definitely got spacier.
I mean, this was the bridge between Scram's Touche and the Touche that plays to pop punk crowds.
Yeah, for sure. But and like just like they nailed it on this album, and I missed it ever since it left.
Shout out to this and Shed for both being like just under 30 minutes. Like that's just perfect album.
This album's 20 minutes long.
It's 23 minutes, and then Shed's 27.
I mean, do you think it's so? Our emo is totally cool with Touche getting posted there.
Yeah,
it's just such an amalgamation of everything. So yeah,
they're one of those bands that just fit.
Yeah,
like you said. I think there's an album that I'm gonna talk about in my like adjacent section that accomplished this even better this year. But I do think Touche had a little bit of parallel with like what I hear about people talking about Through being cool when that came out because everyone liked that record. Hardcore kids, emo kids, pop punk kids.
Absolutely.
Touche has staying power, and you could tell that from the second that this record hit your eardrums.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fucking iconic.
That White Wives band I talked about, that's like Chris from Anti-Flag and someone else. All of these bands were kind of coming up at the same time. Like a lot of bands that became like names. I would say like Polar Bear Club was definitely lumped into this whole thing too.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Polar Bear Club record that they did this year later.
I didn't
But
really put one out that year. Okay, that makes sense.
exactly.
But like Touche was definitely like, they always seem to be like the headliner of all that shit.
They were the leader of the pack. I think a lot of that was also because, they had been around for just a little bit longer than everyone else. Jeremy Boehm he's a very charismatic person, very good at networking. I mean, didn't this come out on Death Wish?
This came out on Death Wish.
Yeah, that's fucking huge. That's them making a career move,
Yeah, I mean, they're not on Death Wish now. They're on Epitaph now. But
they're on
Jeremy
Epitaph,
still
which
has...
is like, that's the step up.
Yeah, but
That's which is huge, but that's a step up.
I mean, this Touche's managed by Rock Nation, which is
by like Jay-Z's manager. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fucking awesome. And I do think that it's fucking awesome that Touche always takes time to shout out their influences. Like, I think it's cool that, because he has the Death Wish imprint, right? Secret Voice.
Yes.
That repressed Seisha's Discog. He's got multiple copies of the Orchid Jerome's Dream, Tended Skull Split, and obviously, they just they're taking Jerome's Dream and fucking Dangers out on their West Coast run, and I cannot see that, even though 2011 me is like stabbing current me in the face multiple times right now for not going to this show. But it's not a 4-hour drive anymore.
Touche is someone to, even if you don't fuck with the music, like, just mad respect for everything that they do in general.
100%.
That brings us to La Dispute Wildlife. I expected this one to get a lot more votes as well.
I mean, I think Rooms of the House is going to be much more of a contender when 2014 rolls around.
I just don't think I was hanging out where people were just like gushing about Rooms of the House. I saw people like debating about it being like great and good, but not like this is the best thing that they've done. Either way, talking about Wildlife though, this is like, I feel like you're gonna drop that this is your favorite album by La Dispute, but I feel like this is the one that's universally not people's favorites.
Yeah, I promise I'm not trying to be a contrarian, like with my picks for like my favorite albums by these bands, but this is the album that really did it for me with La Dispute. I think this is the album that they like capitalized on all the promise that they showed with Vancouver and Somewhere at the Bottom. Like, it feels fully formed. It feels like they knew exactly what they wanted to do sonically. There's a lot of, not quite experimentation, but like new senses of dynamics on this record in comparison to the last one. But they combined that with like a much sharper sense of focus, and I think that Jordan's lyrics had improved a lot. Like,
yeah, they were definitely refined.
Wildlife has the lyrics in all of La Dispute's discography that I cringe at the very least. But I mean, there's like I was saying a while back when we were discussing La Dispute, I think that this album has probably the most like sleeper hits of all their records. Like, this one has A Letter. This one has Edit Your Hometown.
Edit Your Hometown is a real banger.
Yeah, this one has Edward Benz. There's just a lot of really meticulously crafted, memorable songs on here. I think it's not quite as visceral as Touche or Defeater, but it has this sweeping, epic grandiosity about it that just kind of tends to overwhelm you.
This is a band that's always shooting for the overwhelming. They're never subtle. I mean, fucking King Park, how are you not just like overwhelmed by that song? Like, I remember the first time I heard that song, I was sitting in a fucking computer lab and I was still just like gripping my fucking like desk, being like, what the fuck is going on now?
Yeah, I was walking home from school and I had like a fucking like panic attack. I thought a car was gonna hit me or something. I was really into that song. People make jokes about it. People like treat it like a meme now, but that song like has something. That song has like this weird sense of resonance that it's one of the few songs that 8 years after it came out, like, still after listening to it a million times, it can still send chills down my spine.
Yeah,
like, the storytelling is very powerful on that on that song, and it's a shame that they apparently are not playing it live on this tour.
I've never seen this band live before.
I saw them with Touche, actually. But that was before this record came out, and I have not seen them since. I almost went to see them with Thrice and Nothing Nowhere.
Ooh, interesting.
But
I don't know. This was when Lotus Feet was like unavoidable.
they were the leading Tumblr core artists of the time.
Mm-hmm. I'll also make a note to say that like Lotus Feet and Touche definitely would not be as big if Thursday did not put both of these bands on blast as they were bowing out.
Thursday had a lot to do with it, but I also think that the two bands' connection had a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah.
I think their friendship and that kind of marketing all five of those bands as the Wave was a fucking genius move. Whoever came up with that.
The Big Five.
Like, yeah. I mean, I think Jeremy said that he considers like as many as like 40 something bands to be part of the Wave, but it's those Big Five, and whoever came up with that marketing tactic was fucking brilliant, because even Make, Do, and Mend, as boring as they are, like, had their moment because of that.
And we'll kind of get to where we were seeing these bands being talked about, specifically with one blog that we'll get to. I don't know why I'm not just saying property of Zach, but this was like this. I would say probably like the Big Five actually were like actually getting alt press coverage when that was like barely like meaning anything.
I mean, alt press was like doing like Bring Me the Horizon and Bless the Fall type shit. Like, it was kind of unheard of for a band that sounded like Touche to be getting write-ups with them.
Mm-hmm. But that was definitely like a last leg of like relevant to anything tasteful now. Well, I mean, like, what does alt press write about now? Like
I mean, they write about
Panic.
They write about the nostalgia for they still write about Bless the Fall and Bring Me the Horizon. That's what they still do. They're just grasping for relevancy. They also sometimes publish articles about Little Peep for whatever reason.
So one more of the big ones on the ballot would be Empire with that EP On Time Spending Waiting. What is this actually titled?
On Time Spent Waiting replaced the weight of the world on the shoulders of those you love the most.
Yeah. So this is an EP, but it's like top 2, top 3 most popular Empire releases. I was going through Discogs, and it's been pressed just as much as their LPs, so it counts.
Yeah. I think the reason this is so popular is because it's 11 minutes, so it's accessible.
For a band that is inaccessible.
Yeah, a band that is very prolific and writes way too long of songs most of the time. And I think, to me, what sets this EP apart as well is the fact that the production is very sparse and very minimalist. Like, it sounds like the band is playing in a closet very gently. Especially on When You Were Done Living on Borrowed Time, which has that, like, sick trumpet lick or whatever that is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there was this pocket of time where emo revival bands were using horns, and, like, no matter what it was like, all right, this song's kind of fucking a track.
It always fucked. Yeah.
Fight Boat, you kidding me?
This is, I think, the best place to start with Empire, and then I would advise someone to move on to what it takes to move forward. I think the thing that people always forget about Empire is the fact that they literally never rock out.
I guess that's true.
Their build-ups don't really build up to anything.
No.
Like, they're like it's almost like shellac, but a lot less noisy, if that makes sense. Like, it builds up, and then the tension just deflates.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that method of songwriting is bad. It's hard to sustain that for like 55 minutes and maintain my attention personally. But 11 minutes is the perfect runtime.
Mm-hmm.
And each song is, done very well, is pretty memorable, I think. I will say that the style of guitar playing is not something you hear very much anymore, because it's not exactly twinkly, or tappy or mathy or anything like that. It's almost like when I listen to it, I'm almost like seeing Morse code, you know, like the dots and dashes. Does that make sense?
It's kind of like orchestral. It's kind of like
Yes.
as like orchestral as emo or indie rock guitar playing can get, I guess. I mean, I feel like you have way more specific things to talk about this record, but I am just more curious because I feel like Empire is a band that like a lot of people say that they like, but have hardly heard them. It's just like I don't believe that you actually listen to this band.
I mean, they're a flagship band of the emo revival is the thing. Like,
yeah,
they're stalwarts, you know. Like, I don't want to say it's a legacy inclusion when people like talk this band up, because to be quite honest, they are very good at what they do. And if you like it, like if you like that style, then you are going to fall in love with them. But I also don't think that style is as appealing as a lot of the other names from this era.
So I've always thought this and never aired it out there. Like, do you think that the world have done a more accessible version of what Empire is?
No, because the world is rocked out too.
I
Like,
guess they definitely reach those peaks and then rock with it. Empire doesn't. Okay, yeah, good point.
yeah, Empire has a lot less energy than a lot of the other bands. They focus more on like just this kind of subdued, serene atmosphere. Like, to me, this EP specifically feels like I'm like cuddling with a weighted blanket. Like that's the sonic equivalent of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, maybe the reason that this band as a whole isn't really my bag is because they do sound a lot like American football.
I never
They
thought
sound,
of
and they
that.
also sound a lot. They also sound a lot like the less aggressive moments from Mineral.
I've always drawn the Mineral comparison. Was this band big on Tumblr?
Yes, they were.
Okay. I mean, Keith has very good lyrics.
Yeah, Keith's a very good lyricist and he's just a very, very good guy. So, like, I think that for that reason alone, Empire would be impossible to hate.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were not bad is just a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they were big on Tumblr. They were probably like the biggest pre-Dads band on Tumblr, because I think out of all those bands of this era, that Dads like had the biggest following on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Next to right below The World Is, granted, but like
I think The World is still on Tumblr.
yeah, they're still on Tumblr, and the reason that they had such a big fandom on Tumblr had nothing to do with their music and everything to do with their personality and presence.
And shit posting, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were just straight up mean. Like, the stories so far were also mean on Tumblr, but I've never seen a band just straight up, like, mercilessly cyberbully people like The World Is has. Like, not even Nick Cafferty.
I don't even know the half of it, but I basically dated a series of Tumblrinas that told me all about it.
Yeah. That's good Kyle backstory. That's Eward lore.
So let's get into some of these others, and we don't have to spend much time on them because I've hardly listened to some of these records. But Balance and Composure Separation hardly got votes. I don't know, maybe emo doesn't fuck with Balance that much, but Separation has tracks. I mean, I Tore You Apart in My Head. I think they like swore off that song, but that song is great.
Oh, that sucks. That's a great song. The title track is sick. Quake is sick.
Quake. 100 Words or Less fucking theme song.
Oh yeah, shit. I really like this record. I would go so far as to say it's the only Balance record that I actually like.
Take that back and go with the Tiger's Jaw split. Because that's
oh,
when they peaked.
I mean, I meant LP. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, the Tiger's Jaw split is arguably the best material from both bands.
Like without a question, it's the best Balance set of songs.
Without a question, it's the best balance. But like, I think that's the best post Pizza album Tiger's Jaw songs too.
Okay.
Aside from Baby Spirit Desire.
Yeah. I got to revisit that side of the split. I don't know if we're gonna be talking about the things that we think we're missing or whatever, but that's when I started to be like, whack. I don't know why.
Yeah,
people
I
love
thought that record was
album.
very.
People love
Yeah.
it.
I don't know, dude. It looks like a fucking lava lamp, and that tells you all you need to know.
People were along for that fucking ride, though.
I remember seeing vinyl pressings of that album, like propped up on top of the shirts at Urban Outfitters,
For sure.
like in Planet Hollywood. Yeah.
I'm gonna look at how
insane.
many times that album's been pressed, because I think it's like 1 million. Separation's been pressed 25 times. The things we think we're missing 21 times. All right.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprise. Anything else for Separation?
No, I think I'm good on that.
Cool. Basement. I wish I could stay here.
I fucking love this record.
Really? Okay. I see. This is like the ones where I see the seeds being planted of Basement's huge success, and that's the most I think of it.
I mean, I guess you could argue that Color Me in Kindness is the more well constructed, well written album, but I wish I could stay here. It's just the British version of Shed, and it's sick.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can definitely tell that like whoever is doing guitar in this band is gonna end up working with Pat Flynn.
Yeah.
Like some of there are some surprisingly hard moments on this record.
I need to revisit this now then, because I like got this record
the
in a
vocals
used
get
bin,
like harsh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Color Me in Kindness is the only thing I want to listen to by this band at this point. But I got this record in a used bin like 3 years ago, and I think I already sold it on Discogs.
That's sad. This record's sick.
Okay.
You should get back into it.
Okay. Run for Cover. Put this one out. And they were definitely like, when Tuesdays and Tay, when that was coming out and Basement were like broken up and stuff, people were just like begging for them to come back.
That was mostly based on the strength of Color Me in Kindness. Like, because that album did very, very well financially. Mm-hmm. But I Wish I Could Stay Here is the songs that I want to hear live.
When I saw them with Weezer, they played like 5 songs, and it was a lot of new shit.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. I would say Basement are a great live band, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So apparently I'm going to get roasted for a second. Big Kids Don't Be a Baby.
Yeah, why didn't you put the LP on here?
Probably
Phone
because
Home.
of like research errors. Wait. Phone Home?
Phone Home.
2011. Okay. Yeah, that's a fuck up.
Yeah. I will say Phone Home and Don't Be a Baby share the same best Big Kids track, which is the romantic comedy. That song's a banger. I think that this band passed a lot of people by, due in large part to the fact that their production is horrendous. Like, this record is just not pleasant to listen to, just from like an aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah.
However, they're doing some cool stuff. And am I wrong to think that the singer sounds a lot like Jeff Rosenstock?
I mean, I never thought that, but I like hear it now. I was like, my like biggest point about Big Kids is like, that's a band that basically forgotten about.
They remind me a lot of like those like 90s weird in between punk emo bands like Tuesday or like Tilt Wheel. You know what I'm talking about?
I know who Tuesday is, yeah.
They sound a lot like Tuesday to me.
Like, Big Kids were touring with Joyce Manor when Joyce Manor's LP came out and stuff. And that's how I knew about Big Kids and stuff. And they were definitely on the same blogs that I was downloading these albums from and stuff. But I think this band just, like, they only put records out in 2010 and 2011, and that's 5 releases. So, like, they just burned out super quick. What happened to them? Do we know anything?
I have no idea. I don't know anyone in this band. I don't know any of their history. All I know is that one song, Smokes.
Yeah.
And I wish that they had gotten a little bit better recording quality, and I think maybe their hooks would have come out a bit more, because I think the flatness of the production and the tinniness of it really robs their hooks of a lot of the power that they would otherwise have and makes their songs sound less dynamic.
Yeah, that's putting a lot of thought into it that I didn't put into it. But yeah, maybe that's why they didn't like click or become like a band that people talk about now, I guess, because I don't know.
I mean, I like that. I like how heavy their guitar tone is. You don't really hear many other bands in this era having that like razor sharp like high gain sound on their guitar.
Yeah, Big Kids. I mean, if you haven't checked them out, you should really check them out. Really
Hey,
good.
Kyle.
What?
So I need to call a very, very brief break because I have to go to the bathroom very badly.
Do it, and then we'll come
Okay.
back and talk about the Clippers.
Yes. No, we got to talk about By Surprise first.
So let's talk about By Surprise, which I'm gonna get roasted for. And I don't know why.
Because this album came out in 2010.
That's what Spotify says, but that's what nothing else says. Even Bandcamp
Really?
says yeah. I like looked on Bandcamp because I was listening to it today, and I was like, oh fuck, what did I do? And then, but Bandcamp says By Surprise put out April 4th, 2011.
Oh shit, Discogs is also saying 2011.
Yeah,
Okay, never mind.
but,
Roast
like,
me back for being an asshole.
But I had the same knee-jerk thing of like, the fuck, it says 2010 on Spotify.
Yeah, sometimes I see the record being listed as released after it actually was, but I never see before.
Yeah, which just doesn't make sense in
Yeah.
general. But this was a small band.
Yeah, they were a small band. I was aware of them because I thought that they were extremely underrated. I love this record.
It's a really underrated record. I mean, if you know about it, you love it. But like, I don't know, didn't get passed on to the kids.
The thing that I very much like about it is that they have ridiculous, goofy, over-the-top song titles that are actually related to the lyrics, like rather than being complete non sequiturs.
Yeah, and like you can kind of tell like these guys are like they don't take themselves seriously, and
yeah, they're definitely like irony bros,
but just like kind of like I don't know, like cringy indie dudes, like. They like
I don't know if I consider them cringy, like
not cringy, but just like unapologetic.
Yeah,
like they all have glasses.
Daggermouth is like an unapologetically over the top pop punk band, and I think it's cool that they got name checked like on like an indie record. In the best song of the album, by the way, that song has like such a fucking good bridge. I think the guitar work on this record is really good because rather than being like a riff duel like a lot of the other Twinkle albums of this time were, these riffs kind of like complemented each other and wormed their way around each other. I also think the use of gang vocals on this record is stellar.
Yeah, it's definitely like in like the style of like, I don't know, something more like power poppy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, these guys had hooks for days, and I don't know why no one ever like gives them their due.
I don't know.
Is it because they didn't tour much?
I don't think they. Yeah, I mean, they definitely had like an East Coast presence.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know if they toured. Maybe they did like South by or something. I don't know. But yeah, they didn't really get far out there. But they have like splits with High Tide. They have a split with Broadcaster and a split with Aspiga. I remember that band a little bit.
R.I.P. to this band. They were good.
They apparently have something in the can.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Clippers, An Evening With. I threw this on here because it's an emo J thing. They came out this year, but I just fucking adore this record. Like I fell head over heels for this record like over the past few months. I mean I'm assuming this got like 3 votes at very most, but
yeah, I don't think anyone other than you, me, and Claudio gives a shit about this.
Yeah, which we don't need to even talk about it, but like it's so fucking good. And if you haven't heard it, listen to like all 10 songs by the Clippers. And
yeah, like this EP is 8 minutes long. You are not losing much of your valuable time here.
Yeah, but the split that they did with Coping. It's 2 songs by each band, and like they just outperform each other. Like it's so good. This is I don't understand like what this band was coming from. I think they were just kind of lumped into like the larger sum of DIY in general, but like I don't know what these guys were even going for. It was just like it kind of came out as like the twinkliest version of power pop, I guess, that I could think of.
To me, it almost sounds like Archers of Loaf,
Yeah, like
kind of,
which is like,
but
with
but
like,
crossed with something else
yeah,
that I can't figure out.
yeah,
Like maybe with like Nation of Ulysses, like sassiness, but way cleaner vocals.
yeah, and with someone who could sing well.
Yeah, yeah. Like the singer on this record is like just like leagues above, like any Twinkle band.
Yeah, yeah. I think the singer went on to do another project that Top Shelf put out. I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, this was a Top Shelf band. They did a couple of 7-inches for them. But yeah, just do yourself a favor and listen to them. Next up is That Deer Leaf and the World Is split LP. This is a fucking phenomenal split. I know I just said like that Clippers and Coping is like the bands trying to outdo each other, but like this one, they just go pound for pound on each half of the record.
This is Deer Leap's best material.
I would say so.
It
Yeah.
is the world. It's the world is his second best material
Okay.
after Josh is dead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you spend a lot of time with those deep cuts then.
I suppose. I mean, whenever, if ever, is about the furthest I go with this band.
See that? I mean, I have the take that no one has, but like I think that like Harmlessness is my favorite thing by The World Is.
We can all agree that Always Foreign is a bland piece of shit, though, right?
It's. I mean, I tried to love that album. I tried to like it. I just don't. I
mean,
don't like it.
I respect Harmlessness's ambition, but Always Foreign just has nothing for me to latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, on the subject of the split, I think it's probably the furthest that any of the big genre bands had gone into post rock
Yeah.
at this time, because this is like true crescendo core on this.
What makes it work so well though?
I think it's the energy. I
Yeah.
think it's the fact like playing with like a ton of like conviction.
Yeah, it's kind of like them both coming out of the gate with the biggest eyes possible. Definitely, The World Has got a lot more narrow. That's also not true because The World Is just like fucked around so much because they had that like minute where they had the spoken word shit that never did anything.
Yeah, and they've had like what 37 members. They've had more members than like a 2010 metalcore band.
Yeah.
Like just lots of people cycling in and out.
I gotta yell
Oh,
at my dog
Cosmo.
for a second. But yeah, I mean, Deer Leap, I never really fucked with the full length, or
Same.
They did Here, and Improvements. I don't even know what Here is.
I don't know. I like never listen to that stuff because if I'm going back to Deer Leap, it's probably going to be the split.
Mm-hmm. But I want to get to Into It Over It here, because Proper. So Into It Over It Proper, I was expecting for this to get a lot of votes. At the time, I thought this was like Into It Over It's biggest record, and they weren't going to top it and stuff. But
Well, I still think this is probably my favorite thing Evan Weiss has ever done.
you think this record is better than like Pet Symmetry or There?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I think the Pet Symmetry records are way better than this. But
Do you know why I like this album so much?
because
It's a pop punk album.
okay, yeah. I mean, it really is. I revisited this today, and I was like, "This is what this sounds like." That's right. I also just love how it's like a love letter to like. This was the Chicago record, right? Or was it Philly?
Yeah. He had previously done a song where he wrote an EP where he wrote songs about each of 5 neighborhoods in Chicago. That was a different one. 12 Towns was a collection of splits that he did with a band from each town. That's why this album is called Proper, because it was his first proper like record as Into It Over It.
I'm being schooled.
Yeah, I mean, what this album is really a love letter to is like the people who have been following Into It Over It for as long as they had, and by this time, like to me, Into It Over It was easily the biggest band of the scene because they were no longer associated with emo; they were more associated with indie rock and pop punk. They like had transcended. Also, fun fact: that's the dude from Castavet on drums here.
That would make sense.
This record's really good. I think it's Evan's best vocal performance. I think it's got shit tons of energy and tons of polish on the songwriting. Definitely made like the 3-year wait between like 52 weeks and this like worth it.
Yeah. How do people feel about Intersections following this one? Because I thought that was like I remember that being everywhere, but like
Intersections was big, and then Standards was even bigger.
Standards was bigger, but I don't fucking like it at all.
No, this is like the only Into It Over It record that I even really go back to.
Mm-hmm. I saw Into It Over It for the first time solo acoustic on a Glamour Kills tour.
Oh my god, that's very 2012.
Yeah, people weren't fucking paying attention, that's for sure.
Yeah, makes sense.
Let me out my dog one more time. Cosmo. So let's get into 2 more here. Pianos Become the Teeth, the Lack Long After. This was... I always get their 2 full lengths mixed up that were on Top Shelf.
The Lack Long After is the good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep You is the one where it's like very, very mellow.
I mean, you said you were into that record, if I remember correctly.
I might have been thinking about The Lack Long After. I like adore Old Pride. I think that is like one of my favorites of like this entire stretch of time. But The Lack Long After, I do adore. Like songs like Good Times, so good. Like so catastrophic.
The Lack Long After was a really fucking big deal. And again, this like 4 out of the 5 bands from the wave put out records in 2011. Like, this was definitely the year where that whole thing kind of exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Pianos Become the Teeth were instrumental in that. They had like the most quote unquote legit sound of all of those bands.
What is legit?
Like they sounded the closest to like DIY hardcore.
Okay, yeah. I was looking at like their like tours around this time, and like they were always like doing like these big opening slots in like big venues and shit. Like I was watching YouTube videos of like their old shows, and like they were hopping on these bigger tours. Yeah.
I don't know. This record's a very good time. It doesn't mean as much to me as the Touche record or the La Dispute or even the Defeater record that came out this year, but it's a very good record.
I don't mean to be talking about records we're probably going to be ending up talking about, but like Keep You, I was definitely lost on that shit.
Sea Haven.
Don't know anything about
so I was shocked to find out that they're from California. Like I thought they were a British band for forever because of the singer.
Wait, I know I've heard like one song from this band. I thought they were UK.
Right? Yeah, no, they're from California.
Oh, that just pisses me off.
Yeah, the singer kind of sounds like the dude from Cage the Elephant, honestly. Like it's like that really. Yeah, it's like a wilting kind of whack white boy indie rock voice, and it's a shame because the music itself is like fucking sick. The music on this record is every bit as good as like the Basement record or the Balancing Composure record that came out this year, but the vocals just ruin it for me.
I've heard precisely one song by this band, and I think it's from that Reverie thing.
Oh, yeah. In another world, I would have been a much bigger fan of this band, but they just like blew right past me.
Is this band canceled, or are they just broken up?
Oh, they're just broken up.
Okay.
No, they're actually still together. I'm sorry. I lied. They're neither canceled nor broken up. They are still an active band, but they just have not done anything.
Right.
Like, Wikipedia lists them as still active. in any case.
Good to know. So at this point, we talk about Ellie's adjacent records.
Mm-hmm. So I actually wrote down like an untenably big list of albums that came out this year. So I'm just going to shout out some albums that we probably will not talk about. This was like a huge year for hardcore. Like Harm's Way, Isolation came out. Trapped Under Ice, Big Kiss Goodnight came out. Backtrack, Casey Jones, Counterparts, Trap Them, Weekend Nachos, Zabalba, Trash Talk, all had like ridiculous records this year. And also it was a pretty good year for hip hop, I think. Watch the Throne, Kendrick, ASAP, and Danny Brown all had like stupid good albums this year. I do not like early Childish Gambino, but Camp came out.
Really?
Mac Miller's first record came out, Blue Slide Park, which I think is actually his best one. Anyway, so Jace records that came out this year. First of all, The Wonder Years, Suburbia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could listen to this record and tell me that there was no emo influence. Like the guitar is like unmistakably influenced by like intricate Midwest emo shit.
Not because of the records, but just on principle. If we put the Wonder Years on here, then we gotta put Joyce Manor self-titled on here.
No.
I'm just saying on principle of letting one versus the other in.
Okay, so let's agree that we will not put either of them up on the voting block, but I will talk about the Wonder Years whenever I get the chance.
Sure. Sure.
Suburbia is amazing. Like, that might be a top 10 album ever for me. I think that The Greatest Generation is also good, but they got a little bit too far up their own ass, and then they went full rock star after that. But Suburbia is just that perfect sweet spot of like ambition and like humbleness.
Yeah.
I think it works well. Probably the beginning of the decline for Fireworks, because Gospel came out. Gospel is their most successful record, and it didn't even do that great. This band never really had their quote-unquote moment. And that's a shame, because they were very, very good at what they do. I prefer their earlier stuff, and like I said, I think Gospel is the start of their decline as songwriters, but...
like, the thing that I noticed about Fireworks as someone who was watching pop punk from the sidelines is that Fireworks never became a headliner, but they were always a fucking absolutely perfect direct support.
B-tier band. Yeah.
Direct support. Like, I saw the Wonder Years twice with Fireworks, and like everyone knew all the words for Fireworks, but like shit, I don't think there's a right venue for Fireworks to even headline. Like, it's like 50 people.
If I remember correctly, they did play last at Chain Reaction in 2010 on their tour for the debut, and I just missed them. I saw Man Overboard and Transit, but I missed them.
Man Overboard were opening for them?
It was I think like a co-headlining thing.
Okay.
And Fireworks are playing last. What else? Crucial Dudes, 61 Pen. That album came out this year.
Never
Legend.
listened to them.
The most underrated band of this era of pop punk, hands down. This album is fucking fantastic.
That's a Philly band, right? Because I think.
Yeah, they're Philly. The band Neck Deep got their name from a line in their song "Boom Roasted."
Oh. Yeah.
I don't like Neck Deep, but I like Crucial Dudes.
So what are they all about? Like, what makes them emo adjacent?
The guitar work. Like, I think a lot of this particular era of pop punk had a lot of influence from emo, just in the fact that the guitar work was a lot more intricate. Like, it was kind of taking the energy and aggression of melodic hardcore, crossing it with the intricacy of Midwest emo, and then throwing a shit ton of like sticky pop punk vocal hooks over the top.
These guys don't look like they play pop punk.
Right? No, not at all.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about this band besides like where they were from.
Yeah, I promise you this album's a fucking wrecker. And it's very short, so it's not much of a time investment.
Sweet.
I guess Man Overboard self-titled came out this year. That's like the first of their shit records. Transit, Listen and Forgive. This is the album of theirs that sounds most like American football. a lot of people will say that this is the best Transit album, but I think it is like also their first shitty album.
That Glamour Kills tour that I was talking about, Transit played in like the middle of it. It was like 6 bands or something, and Transit played in the middle of it, and like it just seemed to bum everyone out. Like the vibe just like changed so instantaneously.
Yeah, and what's weird is that Patrick Stump's got a guest vocal spot on that record.
Yeah, they were a big ass band.
It's just bizarre to me. I have Emure Speaker of the Dead on this list for whatever reason. I think is like maybe it's as a sarcastic joke, but also maybe not sarcastic because I think this is the album with Solar Flare Homicide on it, and that song is like a fucking banger. I also have Let Live on here.
Let Live, man. They really went for it, and then they just burnt out, right?
Yeah, but the Fever 333 is like huge now.
What is the Fever 333?
That's like the new band that Jason Butler is doing. That's like
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's kind of like a Rage Against the Machine thing, but like their streaming numbers are insane, and they got nominated for a Grammy.
What? I've never even heard of this.
Yeah.
Not that matters. But
Polar Bear Club put out a real shitty album this year.
which one was that?
It was I forget the name of it, but it was the follow-up to the debut. It was their second record. And what I was going to say earlier when I was talking about Title Fight is I felt like Shed is the actual like what the follow-up to Polar Bear's debut should have sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual follow-up to Polar Bear Club's debut was like very bad.
This one that's killing it on it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. And then the last big one that I want to talk about as far as the Jace stuff is, to me, this is the album that like fucking changed everything and started like on the path to blowing up the scene, kind of turning pop punk into like the once again mainstream thing that it is now. And that's the story so far under Soil and Dirt.
Mm-hmm.
This record like is the through being cool of our generation. Everyone fucked with this album. Didn't matter who you were. And I think that they like really broke into the mainstream proper with the follow-up, which you don't see, which only has one good song on it, The Glass. But like Under Soil and Dirt is like such a perfectly crafted record if you ignore the extreme misogyny in the lyrics. And like somehow it's their least popular full length now. Like I have no idea.
What do you mean by that?
If you look on Spotify, it's the LP with like the least like streaming.
Okay.
But I remember this being like a real big record on like file sharing websites in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely started. I don't know if they were ever doing shit DIY, but like they were definitely.
Yeah, they were. They had EPs and splits. They even had like a little easy core demo that you can track down if you're so inclined.
Okay.
Just like Citizen.
But they like definitely spent the time like being the opener for like
yeah, I saw them play
for like a few years. Yeah.
And I think the fact like this record was like marketed as like the most pop punk pizza thing imaginable, but really it's just a melodic hardcore with tons of Midwest emo influence in the guitar work. It's all over the place.
And hooks.
Well, I think Parker Cannon sounds a lot less pop punk and a more like braying donkey. Like, so I think the vocals are not the thing that's like hooky with the story so far. I think it's like all the instrumentals.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do I know? Like people really love Parker.
I was gonna say,
the fact
like,
that he's Parker, a girl off stage.
Parker's the fucking frontman. Like he is what any successful pop punk band needs.
And the thing, my favorite member of that band has and will always be the bassist Kellen.
I don't know.
That dude's chill as shit.
Okay.
That dude's chill as shit. He's in a massively successful pop punk band and rolls up to every show in his like '94 Honda Acura.
Why?
He doesn't want to waste money getting a new car. That's it for me with Jace Records.
Cool. We got a lot out of this episode so far, so let's maybe just wrap it up just talking about Property, Zach.
I can't think of a better thing to end this episode out on.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a make or break thing for a lot of bands. Like, who were some of these bands? Like, predominantly pop punk bands we're gonna talk about, but like, this is when Knuckle Puck was coming up. This was when
Real Friends.
Real Friends was in there too.
Chumped. I saw Chumped on Property of Zach a whole bunch.
But
Sprainerd.
And like they're like I'm trying to look it up now, but Property of Zach's like YouTube channel was really big too. Like they, I mean, Modern Baseball for sure, but that's missing it by a year or two.
Yeah. I think what made Property of Zach special was the fact that they were willing to like approach albums that were previously regarded as mainstream trash with like actual critical like distinction. Like I remember they had tons and tons of articles like extolling the virtues of What to Do When You're Dead by Armor for Sleep or From Under the Cork Tree by Fall Out Boy.
Sure, yeah.
Like albums that people would never like think to give the time of day at a site like Pitchfork, but are treated with like a lot of dignity and respect by the people writing for this site. And the fact of the matter is, Property of Zach had very good writers across the board. Like people who actually knew their way around a fucking sentence.
For like being something that wasn't like owned by Spin Media or something. Like,
right, yeah.
But was actually like professionally run and whatnot. They did have like good writers. What were the Swellers doing at this time?
Oh shit.
Were they done?
I was gonna bring up the Swellers and the Flatliners.
The Flatliners I feel like strays off into orgcore way more.
That's true,
than,
but
like,
Property of Zach liked their orgcore, you know?
Yeah, that's true. The Swellers forever, and unfortunately a band's band. Also, Hostage Calm is another band from that come up that is not emo, not really pop punk. It's like its own.
However, Hostage Calm does have a ton of emo cred.
Yeah,
because they helped invent the word Twinkle Daddy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Connecticut and shit.
Yeah, just hanging out with Shitty Greg. Candy Hearts. The first time I ever saw Candy Hearts was on Property of Zach.
I have heard terrible things about that band.
They're an extremely pleasant pop punk band.
Yeah.
I very much adore them. At least their first record. Everything was amazing and no one's happy.
Well, what else can we talk about with Property of Zach? They were like a no bullshit website. Like if you were like they like wrote about like the like shit of substance, like inclusivity. They were, and their staff was taking like Warped Tour to task and shit about like their lineups and stuff. So I mean, not that was like wasn't happening elsewhere, but like people would really get their eyes on it.
Property of Zach was one of the first times I saw people like using the term social justice warrior as an insult. Like that got like leveled at them quite a bit because they had the guts to stand up for stuff that they thought was morally right. And I think, 7-8 years on, they've been vindicated in a lot of ways. Was Property of Zach one of those websites that wrote about all the shit that went down with mixtapes?
What shit went down with mixtapes?
It was just the guitarist got like in trouble for being like a weird, creepy dude, but also the singer of mixtapes like was groped by a member of an audience at Warped Tour and like went fucking off about that. So really there was like two sides of the mixtape story. There was the fact that it was shitty of that person to grope the singer of mixtapes, but also it was very shitty for the guitarist of mixtapes to be an asshole. I remember that being big gossip. And I'm also surprised that we have not talked about mixtapes yet.
That was a No Sleep record.
Yeah. I remember them being like real prominent in the scene. Not exactly as like being like a headliner, but the fact that they were like everywhere.
Yeah, they were a big personality. They were online, all the shit like that.
So Property of Zach closed down in 2015, right?
After it's kind of running out of steam. But I
remember they did like a whole like 2-week long lead up to it with everyone publishing their own like little goodbye pieces.
Yep, I do remember that exactly happening.
I don't know. I was bummed when they closed their doors because you just were not gonna find like someone with that same caliber of writing talent covering those bands. It kind of became once again that they were like left to become like the detritus of Sputnik music like reviews.
Yeah. I just kind of miss when publications like that had so much pull. Not in a way of like I need to be spoon-fed what I should listen to, but just kind of in the way of like going through a website and like and just seeing what people were talking about. I guess that turned into our email, but our email is just really just fish in a barrel.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the consistent voice that Property of Zach had.
Right. Chorus FM is just posting press releases and 10-year-old press photos. I don't know who the fuck Chorus FM is for now.
Does Chorus FM have like a comment section or forums?
I think it's like shit you have to pay for now.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Who does that?
I don't know. I hate Jason Tate. I think he's a jackass.
Oh, Jason Tate's a total dipshit. He's almost as bad as the dude from Buddyhead. Remember Buddyhead?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, that was like before Pitchfork really came into its own. Buddyhead was the snarky music internet publication for indie bands.
Was it Justin? Oh, okay, for indie bands. Yeah, I've never ever heard of this Buddyhead.
They had like a little mini record label. They put out some sass bands. They put out an At the Drive-In record, I think.
Oh, what?
Yeah, like a 7-inch or something. Yeah. No one ever remembers them, but if you want to know where like Pitchfork kind of swiped their snarky writing style for that hot minute between like 04 and 2010, it's Buddyhead.
Tight. I was gonna say, like, I don't know exactly what happened to Zach, but I know he like started working as like brand new's management team.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I think he might.
Well,
I think he might own a donut shop now.
What a character arc.
Yeah,
that's like some shit that if it happened on a TV show, I'd stop watching.
Yeah, but I guess like, what do you do after the band takes?
You could always start up Property of Zach again if
Sure.
he wants. I don't know. I can't really think of any site that replaced Property of Zach as far as being like that type of pub.
Our emo. Just kidding.
Our emo just has a different vibe.
I know.
Mostly because the people who post are not held to the same standard of. There's no editorial process,
Right.
To post on our emo.
You can't.
So
Property of Zach can't exactly shit post.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think this
Well,
calls
shit.
it, right? Yeah. 2011.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Cool. 2012 is gonna be
Huge.
It's gonna be a huge one to tackle. There's a lot of big records. The voting went down to the wire. Like 6 votes came between the one that we're gonna deep dive, and I'm stoked about the one that we're gonna deep dive. Yeah.
I think if it had been the other one, our listeners would be very disappointed because there's not much we could have been that we would be able to do with that.
Yeah. I don't really know.
Yeah.
All
right.
right. Thanks y'all for listening, and we'll see you when we're talking about our 2012 record.